Okay, so we're going to get our cardboard that we have from a cereal box. I have a tissue box here. The more the better, but whatever you have will work. And we are going to practice drawing our shapes on our piece of cardboard. So first we're going to start with the shape of a circle. So I'm going to use a marker. You can use a marker too, but just remember with a marker you can't erase if you make a mistake. So you might want to use a pencil if you're worried about making mistakes. So I'm going to draw a bunch of circles as big as I can, all next to each other. Oh, this guy's kind of small. That's okay. All right, so I have some circles. Now we're going to work on drawing some squares. So I have all this cardboard, my students, but we want to focus on as close as possible because that's going to mean a lot less cutting for us. So we're going to go ahead and draw lots of squares. You can also use the side of the cardboard as part of your shape so that you do not have to cut out that side. Lots of squares. You can do some that are bigger. You can put them right next to each other to make sure that you're using your cardboard well. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares I fit into one spot. I'm going to do a few more here. Okay, and then I'm going to do some triangles now. Don't worry about little things like that. We can work around it. So I'm going to do some triangles. And actually, if you do one up and one down, you can fit more triangles into your piece of cardboard. Okay, so we can keep going and do as many shapes as we want, but first we want to see what we have to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting some of these shapes. It's helpful to separate the pieces before you start cutting, especially with cardboard. Cardboard can be very hard to cut, which is why we are using our cereal box and tissue box cardboard. It is pretty close to paper. So now I'm going to start to cut out these individual shapes. Okay, so you can see here I have my shapes. I'm going to organize them by square, triangle. You can see I did not stay exactly on the lines I drew. That's okay as long as you end up with a triangle shape. It does not need to be perfect. So my students, you can see with the circle, I actually still have them in the shape of a square. That is the easiest way to then cut out your circle. Cutting out circles right away can be very challenging. So I like to cut them into squares first, and then I can work with each little piece to go around those edges and cut out my circles. So I'm going to go ahead and keep cutting my circles. Okay, so I have my circles, I have my squares, some are more like rectangles, but that's okay. And then I have my triangles. Now, these are all pretty small shapes, and we're going to be using them to create a castle. So what I would like to do next is get some bigger shapes so that we can use those for building blocks of our castle. One of the pieces of cardboard, this could be the other side of your cereal box, This could be another piece of cardboard that you have that's a little bit thicker. You can also use a piece of paper. If you don't have more cardboard, a piece of paper will work just as good. So we are going to be gluing our shapes onto this to make a castle. But in order to create our castle, we first need to think about how are we going to use shapes as building blocks. Okay, so I'm at a place where I feel like I like what I have. I want to add more, but I also, as I add more pieces, others are moving around, and that can get frustrating if things move out of the places you want them in. So you can either use a glue bottle, which is liquid glue. Just use a very little bit like we practice in class, dot, 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 not a lot. Or you can use a glue stick as well. Sometimes these don't stick as good depending on which one you have. Just make sure that you're using enough to keep that piece in place. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue my smaller pieces so I don't forget where I put them. Glued all the pieces I had so far. The glue is still wet, so I can't move them too much or they will come off. If some glue gets in the background piece, that's actually okay. We don't need to worry about that. So you can see now, my students, that I've created 2 layers. I've created the big shapes and then small shapes on top. So that's 1, 2 layers. So this is as far as we are going to get this week. But if you would like to continue adding shapes, smaller shapes inside the ones you have, you can. If you would like to continue gluing shapes, oops, this guy did not glue down all the way. Gluing shapes on your castle, you can continue to stack them like blocks going all the way up. But this is where we're going to end for this week, and we'll pick up where we left off next week.